Somewhere on the trail through the Andes Mountains, when I was 20 years old, I made a choice that would end up impacting and directing so much of what I would do in my business, and I didn't even know I was making it. There's this photo of me at Machu Picchu. I had just finished this 5-day trek through the Andes, and I'm standing on the edge of one of the wonders of the world. The view is breathtaking. And in the photo, I look calm, I look strong, I look proud. And I was all of these things. But what you can't see underneath that photo is that I was carrying more grief than I knew what to do with. What you can't see is that somewhere on that trail, I made a quiet decision, one that felt like strength, but would end up shaping my business, my creativity, and my voice for years to come. A few weeks earlier, I was getting ready to travel to South America. This was my first time living abroad internationally, and I was very excited for it. I needed some changes in my life. Um, for many of the years before, I was really involved in church and felt a lot there. And as the years went on, and as many people around 19 and 20, you start to get a little bit disillusioned on the institution. But there were two people in my life that were really pillars of faith for me. I had faith because of how they showed up in the world. The first was named Paul. He was a few years younger than me, somebody that I had grown up with and mentored at many of the different church camps. And though I mentored him, he was also a big mentor for me. He always had a great smile. He was excited and fun and the center of a great group of people that I loved very much. The second was named Ben Entwistle. Ben grew up living in Africa with a missionary doctor father. He had stories of every kind of crazy African creature attempting to murder him. And he had so many ways that he narrowly escaped death. The one thing that he wasn't able to escape was this condition called rheumatic fever. When he was 13 years old, he needed to get his sternum cut open and have a very risky heart surgery done. But by the time I met him 6 years later, that was all healed up and he was young and energetic and full of life. A few days before I departed for my trip to South America for a brand new adventure, I get a frantic call from a girl from church, letting me know that Paul had just made the most final of decisions, decided to leave this world. And I immediately froze. I didn't know how to feel. In fact, a lot of my patterns leading up to this at the time of things that I had learned in my home and maybe in my school was I wasn't supposed to feel. I wasn't allowed to feel. I was supposed to follow the rules. I was supposed to be smart. I was supposed to work hard. But emotions, those were dangerous things. Luckily for me, I went to South America, and there's not a better place to dissociate or distract yourself from some of these things. When I was living in Chile, going to the discotecas, learning Spanish, enjoying some wine, all good things to distract from the pain that I didn't want to process. Next, after 5 weeks in Chile, a few friends and I decide that we want to go to Machu Picchu together. And so we fly up to Peru. And the night before we departed for this 5-day trek in Cusco, Peru, I get another phone call telling me that Ben had a strange freak stroke happen to him at a very young age. Because of his heart surgery, there was an infection that went up into his brain and caused major problems, and he died in transit to advanced healthcare just a little more than a month after Paul had gone. And I began on this adventure, walking down the trail, walking through some of the tallest, most beautiful mountains in the world to one of the most beautiful places in the world. And while I enjoyed the activity and the nature and the outdoors and the adventure, inside, I had made a quiet decision to myself. I didn't want to believe in God anymore, and I only wanted to believe in myself. And at the same time, I stopped believing in myself in a lot of ways and fell back on a lot of these early childhood survival patterns to survive. Instead of being expressive, I was quiet. I was following the rules. I was doing what I should be doing. I was trying to get results. And without me realizing it, these choices would guide how I ran my business and a lot of the choices I would make in my life for years to come. Years later, I found myself walking down another road. Instead of the mountains in the Andes, I was walking down an icy road in a January towards a coffee shop in Salt Lake City. I had built a successful marketing agency. We had great high ticket clients. We were helping them make millions of dollars in revenue through better talks, sales pages, automations, emails, the whole gambit. And on the outside, it looked like everything was working. We were all highly talented people, and I was doing a good job bringing in more clients. But inside, I felt hollow. I was disconnected from my work and just doing more of what I thought I should be doing, trying to help people make more money and achieve more. But I was disconnected from myself. Walking down this road, I was getting all kinds of calls from different team members with conflicting problems and challenges, and how my team was clashing heads with my clients and my clients clashing heads with my team, and constantly bleeding out cash and not knowing what to do about it other than, well, I'll get up on stage more and I'll speak more and I'll make more money to throw more money at these problems. But deep down, something that I knew and recognized even then was this wasn't just a business problem. It was the same pattern, the same choice that I had made earlier on that mountain trail, to shut off the emotional part of me, to rely only on strategy, execution, and performance. And that pattern now was running my business. It looked like success, but it felt like a prison. And I had become the operator of a machine that I no longer felt connected to. And I began to realize that if I wanted my business to feel different, if I wanted to lead differently, speak differently, live differently, I had to reconnect with the parts of myself that I had buried to survive. Now, my story's not unique. Although maybe walking through the Andes and making this decision may sound very different than some of the things that you've experienced, but I see this same pattern, this same thing happening in the clients that I work with all the time. Not always for the same reasons, but it's always the same result. It's hard, really hard, to share your emotions, your story, your full self, especially when somewhere along the line you learn that being smart, being successful, being the one who had it together was safer than being the one who was seen. So we build our brands on our knowledge. We craft content from our intellect. We teach and explain and systematize, not because that's wrong, but because it feels safer than saying, here's what I've lived through. Here's where I've hurt. Here's what I've believed when I didn't know any better. And here's who I am now. And frankly, as high achievers, we get addicted to external validation. We learn to measure our worth by what we produce, by how many people we've impressed, by how quickly we can solve a problem. And underneath all of that, there's a creative, feeling, human part of us that's been buried. And that's the pattern I had to face in myself. And that's the one I see in many of the clients that I served. And it's why the talks that I help people create work. It's not just copywriting. It's not just structure. It's not some clever hook. It's because we tap into something that's deeply human. It's because we reveal who we are instead of just explain what we know from the stage. And when we can bring the audience into the moment where something real happened with a purpose, with a strategy, with a method, that's what moves a room. That's what sells without feeling salesy. And that's what creates resonance instead of resistance. And it's so hard to do it all alone, on our own, because there's years, sometimes decades, of sediment built up over our sense of self, of voices telling us who we should be, of fears whispering, that's too much to say, that's too vulnerable, that's risky, that might make us seem less professional. But what I've learned is this: when you can stand in front of a room of people and show your wounds, not your armor, that's what makes your message become magnetic. Not because it's authentic, but because everyone else is carrying the same pain. And your story helps them make sense of theirs. And that's the work I do. And that's the work I've had to do for myself, and the invitation I have for you. Because there's a joy for me in helping others reclaim what they've hidden. Because you've had to fight to reclaim it too. A few months after walking down that frozen road, my business falling apart, and myself falling apart, I had made a choice and a commitment. Shortly thereafter, the pandemic happened and held me to those commitments in a way that I never expected possible. I let go of a lot of my team that I was hiding behind as a high achiever and started leaning into the real truth, the creativity, the inspiration of what I did. I ended up taking a vacation to Hawaii to take care of myself. And while I thought I was going to be there for 5 days, I ended up extending over and over and connecting with that youthful, imaginative self that originally set off to enjoy South America in the first place. I began sharing my stories and my vision and my creativity with my clients, and charging the same prices that I used to charge with an agency full of team members executing for me, for the real value in what I provided and what I created and what I served, in helping people see themselves, to create the enrollment in themselves and their vision that they would want anyone else to experience when hearing them speak from the stage. Because reconnection with your truth is what creates natural magnetism. It's a transformative process of yourself, and presence converts way more than performance. And the more you see your own beauty and your uniqueness of who you are, not what you've done again, the more quickly and clearly your audience will see it too. So many people I have met along the way feel like the secret ingredient to their success has come at the cost of themselves. And I want you to know that you're not alone, and there's a better way. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Story Engine podcast.